Does anyone remember Kung Fu Panda 4? Kung Fu Panda is not only an amazing film franchise loved by millions, but it's also just like the coolest thing ever. People have varying opinions on which movie is the best. The first one will forever be a classic. I know a lot of people love the second one because of its darker themes. And personally, I like the third one the most because it's a silly time. But despite all the love this franchise gets, there is one thing that most, if not all fans, seem to unanimously agree upon. That being that the latest installment, Kung Fu Panda 4, is kind of hot garbage. Like, people really don't like this one. They want to burn it from the record books entirely. Listen, this year I've watched every Kung Fu Panda movie for the first time ever, so today I'll be doing the exact same thing and watching Kung Fu Panda 4 in full to see if it's really that bad. I've heard that this is by far the worst movie in the franchise, but I want to know if this is actually just a bad movie on its own. Well, that's what we're gonna find out today, so I'm cutting the intro short, so grab your copy of Naruto Clash of Ninja 2 for the GameCube. It's because it's got ninjas in it, and, you know, Kung Fu. Without further ado, let's watch what may very well be the worst in the franchise, Kung Fu Panda 4. Real quick, I don't have any sponsors, so simply liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already would mean the world to me. I'm trying to hit 25k before my birthday, so please do that. I'm sorry for asking. On to the video. Our story begins with some random goats playing Minecraft IRL in the mountains somewhere. Everything seems normal until we, the viewer, are reintroduced to a familiar face. Hey, yo. Hold up! Yep, that's right. Tai Lung, who was the villain from the very first movie, is back and ready to get some revenge on everyone who's wronged him. What an epic start. Already here, you probably have a couple questions. Why is Tai Lung attacking some random goats? How is he even alive? Why does he want to be Sephiroth so bad in this scene? These are all questions I hope to answer in this video. We get a weird transition from Tai Lung's face onto Po's face, but it's pretty cool. I had a fun time drawing on it. And now we're with Po. He's fighting some sort of stingray, I think, while everybody nearby looks on. I won't lie, this fight is over pretty quick, and it's basically only here to remind the viewer that although he's kind of an idiot, Po is capable of fighting off some bad guys here and there. Also, apparently the stingray ate 3 children, and that's why Po was fighting him. It's not really that important to the plot or anything. I just thought it was wild. Like, this random mini-boss actually intended to eat these kids alive. After this fight, Po returns home, and everyone in the village is super happy to see him. It's clear that Po has not only become a symbol of peace that everyone looks to for protection, but he's also a person that everyone looks at as this super high rank player who basically runs the server. Po is showing off the staff of wisdom that Master Oogway gave him in the last movie. If you haven't seen it, check out my video on it. I explain everything perfectly with no flaws, I swear. Some kids come up to Po really excited to meet the Furious Five because, you know, who doesn't love the Furious Five? Po is always with them. They're arguably even cooler than Po and have a bunch of backstory yet to be told. So hopefully this is the movie where we finally learn everything about the Furious Five.
Will the Furious Five be here too?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, the Furious Five aren't in this movie, that's right. One of the biggest criticisms I heard about this movie before watching it was that the Furious Five just wasn't in it at all. It's kind of a weird decision creatively, considering there's a lot you can do with these 5 characters. But if I had to guess, the big scary CEOs of this project probably just didn't want to pay extra to have Angelina Jolie and Seth Rogen talk about, like, how fat Po is or something. It sucks. What are you gonna do? They're not in this movie. But then, turns out Master Shifu is there, and he's all angry because he needs to talk to Po about some serious business, but Po is too busy taking pictures with fans. What is this, TMZ? Stop having fun, okay? Start being more like Kanye.
Hey, good morning, Kanye.
Shut the f up. A couple of lines later, and Master Shifu lets Po know that it's time for Po to pick his successor. The next person in line to become the Dragon Warrior must be chosen by Po personally. It's time for him to pick someone else. Po thinks this conversation is some sort of joke, and honestly, like, rightfully so. Didn't Po just become the Dragon Warrior like a couple years ago or something? The time between this movie and the first movie doesn't seem that long. No one looks visibly older. Po shows no signs of slowing down at all. The only thing I could think about is how Po is confirmed to be over the age of 20 at this point, and the average life expectancy of a panda is like 30 or something at most. So maybe Po is just about to die soon, in which case, that's just fucking sad. Master Shifu explains that once a new Dragon Warrior is chosen, Po will advance to the highest level in all of Kung Fu. The one that Master Oogway was at, where he just meditates for hours on end. That one. Anyway, Po is actually pretty bummed about this because he likes being the Dragon Warrior. It's fun, it's cool. He gets gifted subs all the time on Twitch. It's a good gig.
Who's that fire-breathing crocodile? I want to say Steve.
The crocodile Steve, got it, yep. So literally the next day now, there's this big America's Got Talent type thing where Po is just supposed to pick a successor on the spot. I guess these are the most likely candidates for him to choose, but we don't know anything about them really, so why would we care? Well, it turns out we shouldn't, because as Po usually does, he carves his own path and points to himself instead of anyone else. This means that Po chooses himself to be the next Dragon Warrior. It's a little silly, and Master Shifu gets visibly confused by this, but I remember in the first movie when Oogway pointed at Po, it was just taken as fact, so yeah, I guess Po is his own successor now, officially. Also, I have to mention this, one of the dudes who is trying to become the Dragon Warrior is voiced by Mr. Beast, who honestly, like, whatever, dude, it's just some random cameo, okay, it's harmless fun. People were criticizing this, but honestly, he only has one line in it anyway, so like, who cares?
I
built a giant death trap.
It's here when we get one of the franchise's infamous deep quotes.
Every pit holds the promise of a mighty tree.
Can I help
Holy
me find
base.
answers?
Common Master
Don't ask
Shifu
me.
W. Anyway, Po tries to meditate, but all he can do is think about food, which is when he spots a mysterious figure entering his temple. Po goes inside to try and find out what's going on when he realizes it's just some level 2 crook trying to steal some gold or something. Eventually, the two fight it out, and to no one's surprise, Po wins because he hit this fox so hard that she knocked her head and died Family Guy style. I'm just kidding. The fox isn't dead, but Po does actually win the fight, and then the fox does get thrown in jail. So this is when a bunch of the goats from earlier show up, and Po hears the news about Tai Lung's reappearance. He's pretty shaken up about it. He's clearly kind of scared. He doesn't know what to do about it. So later that night, he's talking to the fox, and the fox says some cryptic stuff about Tai Lung somehow. She also explains that what the goats saw probably wasn't Tai Lung, but a person simply named the Chameleon. That's what everyone calls her, by the way. The writers can be bothered to give the villain in this movie an actual name, so everyone just calls her the Chameleon.
How do I find this? The Chameleon.
The Chameleon has the ability to shapeshift into any person, which honestly is a very OP power, not gonna lie. And of course, the fox somehow knows how to find her, and Po just believes this, so our quest for answers with Panda and Fox begin now. Also, I want to mention that the fox's name in this movie is pronounced Shen, I think, which sounds eerily similar to Shen when said fast, which was probably a horrible idea and a good way to keep everyone very confused, so. The only name more confusing than Jen is the person voicing her. Jen is voiced by Awkwafina, who actually has no affiliation whatsoever with the water brand. And honestly, I think it's a lot of unwarranted hate online. She's cool, to be honest. Okay, she can be funny. Give her a break.
You know what? I love that for you.
So while Jen and Po are making their way to the Chameleon, we actually skip over to the Chameleon and see what she's up to for the very first time. She's got a couple bad guys with her and explaining her plan while also staying kind of vague, so we don't really know what's going on until the end. I'm not gonna lie, this first encounter makes the villain look really cool and actually kind of like a real threat. She's presented in a way that makes her feel actually kind of scary. She reminds me of Shen a little bit from the second movie. I think so far she's actually pretty cool. Surely she won't become more and more surface level as the movie goes on. She also straight up just kills a guy like that one scene from John Wick. Thought it was cool. Eventually, Po and Jen end up at this tavern in the middle of nowhere. It's got a weird atmosphere and everyone in it is kind of evil because, you know, of course they are. Po is oblivious to all of this and Jen is a thief, so of course she gets in trouble. The visit ends with a giant fight somehow, and honestly this whole scene is super cool. I've said this in every Kung Fu Panda video I've made, but the animation is really, really good in this. Visually, this stuff rocks. It's super fun to look at. Also, the music is really good. Okay, Spotify came in clutch with this one. Eventually, Po and Jen do escape the tavern thanks to a fish inside a pelican's mouth, but the pelican is actually the mother of the fish, and they're both captains of the same boat or something like that. Just regular Kung Fu stuff. And now I should probably mention the other half of what's been going on this entire movie. To get you guys caught up throughout the main adventure following Po, there's also been these scenes with Po's two dads, Mr. Ping and Li Shan, I think is how you say it. Li Shan? Li Shane? I don't know. I'll call him Lee. I'll just call him Lee. Earlier, they got worried about Po, so they decided to set off on their own adventure to try to catch up to him to make sure he's eating properly and being safe. How sweet. I won't lie, these two are the best part of this film for me. Mr. Ping has always been my favorite character. Watch my other videos for proof. And just seeing these two working together and being best friends is kind of the best thing they could have wrote into this movie. Please make a spin-off with just these two. I would watch the shit out of that. Back to Po and Jen. These two also bond for a bit. Po is like, I want to stay the Dragon Warrior. Life isn't fair. And then Jen is like, you have any cool quotes? And then Po is like,
Life's greatest enemy is, I don't know. Stairs?
this man cannot get over the stairs in the first movie. I don't understand. One weird dream later, and Po finally arrives in town where the Chameleon is located, I guess. The Chameleon is some super famous villain, but she just chills in town with a bunch of normal people who choose to live there. It's kind of weird. Like, she has a big house on the top of the mountain or whatever, but it's still like in the area. I don't know, it's odd. When they enter this town, we find out that Jen is kind of famous around here. Everybody knows her, including the cops, because turns out she's a highly wanted criminal. How unfortunate. Surprisingly, a person that no one knows around here is Po. Like, at one point, Po exclaims that he's the Dragon Warrior, but no one here even really knows what that means. Obviously, the last three movies have been entirely from Po's perspective, so it's easy to imagine him being some high-profile hero or something, but past his village, I guess he's kind of a nobody. This reminds me of the comments I get online, which are extremely supportive, and the comments I get in real life, which are extremely not. Yo, what's up?
Dude, shut up.
Eventually, Po and Jen end up in some underground society thing where all the rejects live or something. Everyone here hates Jen, which obviously isn't good. There's these crazy rabbits, which are kind of funny.
You kids be careful of those fireworks.
Those are cute. It's like the Manson family. We're introduced to a character named Han. He's kind of the leader down here. I won't be mentioning him too much, to be honest, but I wanted to mention how he's voiced by Ki Kwan, who I love and is the best person in Hollywood probably ever. So somehow, Po convinces these people to help him get into the Chameleon's palace. There's this random bit in between where the not-so-cute rabbits try to make Po drink actual acid. It's funny, just trust me. During all this, we switch back to the cool stuff with Po's two dads. Mr. Ping enters the room and asks if anyone's seen a panda. This ends up being the same tavern that Po trashed earlier in the movie, so everyone here is on edge and ready to kill Mr. Ping because they know about the panda. He kind of like ruined the whole place. But then this is when we get the coolest scene in the entire movie, because Po's other dad, Lee, comes in and acts all badass to protect Mr. Ping. This is a true testament to their newly found friendship, since he basically puts his life on the line to save the day. Also, I'm like super biased with this scene because Lee is voiced by Bryan Cranston, and when he comes in acting all badass, I can't help but think about Walter White, and now I want to rewatch Breaking Bad for like the 3rd time this year. So
Hands off the goose.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
this scene is awesome. Eventually the dads get away and literally everyone else dies or something. I don't know, it's not important. Po and Jen play some Temple Run IRL and they finally get into the palace. Things are going well until Po gets trapped in a cage like a wild animal. He's a panda. The only way he can get out of this cage is by giving Jen his staff, which is when we get the biggest plot twist in animated history. I'm over-exaggerating. It's really not that deep. Turns out Jen has actually been working with the Chameleon this entire time. What? As if. No way. Yep, everything from getting captured at the very beginning to not knowing who Po was and everything else in between was all a ruse to lead Po into this very situation. I haven't felt this betrayed since that one mission in Modern Warfare 2. Po ends up getting out of the cage by himself and eventually fights his way towards the Chameleon. But then Jen shows up and is super sorry about lying to him or something. Turns out she's actually really good. But then again, it's not Jen, but actually the Chameleon. She can shapeshift, remember? That's her whole thing. Po gets pushed off a cliff and is forced to land Tilted Towers, where he then gets one pumped and places 98th in the lobby. Also before that, just listen to how Po says the fox's name here.
Shen?
Like, tell me that doesn't sound like he's saying Shen, the peacock guy from the second movie.
Shen?
Listen, my ears are bad, okay, but why did they make this name so similar? I don't understand. Anyway, Po isn't actually dead because he did that cartoon thing where when he falls, he actually held on to a branch sticking out of a random rock or something. He's in serious trouble now though, but thankfully for him, the only thing bigger than his stomach is the love from his fathers. Mr. Ping shows up and then Loki saves the day. And then Lee also shows up and then also saves the day. These two are the best. I love them. Po is safe now, but he's still very sad and depressed. How relatable. He explains that he's scared to lose his Dragon Warrior status, and he's letting that get in the way of his mindset currently. He's also bummed about being tricked by the fox, who he thought was becoming a good friend. You know who was a good friend, Po? Tigress and Mantis and the other 3 that barely spoke. They were good friends. Anyway, the dads hype him up because they're the real superheroes here. It's mostly a spiel about how change isn't always a bad thing, which it's not. But this whole angle does kind of feel like an afterthought in this movie. The other 3 movies all had pretty clear and fleshed out lessons that the audience can learn and take home with them. And although I've actually enjoyed this movie so far, this one's just like, here's a funky bad guy and some fighting. Oh, and by the way, change happens. Deal with it. There's this really cool scene with the villain now where she uses Po's staff to summon the villains from the spirit realm that Po previously beat. This is actually an awesome concept. We get an Avengers type moment where we see all the boys come back for a bit. Kai is there, Shen is there, and of course, the actual Tai Lung is there. Again, it's a really cool Avengers style moment, and if you've watched the other 3 movies before this one, you probably liked it too. While summoning Tai Lung, he fights off some baddies because he's kind of the hardest player in the entire game, I won't lie. I found myself kind of rooting for Tai Lung here, which is cool. That is until the Chameleon licks him or something and absorbs all of his Kung Fu abilities. That's what she does. She like absorbs their power or something. So now the Chameleon has everyone's skills, and the villains are just breathing potatoes at this point. How epic. After this, Shen just randomly finds Po and explains that she actually does feel bad about what happened and does actually want to help. This part of the movie honestly feels a little rushed, which is like saying something coming from me. It does kind of feel a bit random also, but it's shown that Shen was basically groomed by the Chameleon at a young age to do all this bad guy stuff, so I guess she never really wanted to be bad, and it isn't really her fault. It is kind of funny though how she's been doing this bad stuff her whole life, but as soon as there's one nice panda, she caves and switches sides like immediately. I see you. I respect the hustle. Shen and Po fight for a bit, but it actually ends with Shen giving Po a hug because it's cute, and now everyone wants to be friends. How adorable. Po goes into the lair where the villains are being held when he runs into an old friend.
I'm sorry, do I know you?
Do you know me?
It's the crocodile. It's Scott! Scott the crocodile! Oh my god, it's all coming together. The coolest part about all of this though is definitely seeing Po and Tai Lung finally speak to each other after all this time. Tai Lung still talks down towards Po, but there's also this weird respect thing where Tai Lung knows that Po's got that dog in him. They have a really cool conversation, and honestly, I wish it lasted longer. But of course, we still have Kai and Shen to talk to. Right? No. No, we don't. You see, even though they're literally in the shot, Po never talks to these villains, and actually, they don't even talk in the movie at all. This is probably just another Furious 5 thing, where they didn't want to pay some celebrities a lot of money to come back for a couple lines or whatever. But this time it feels way worse, because you see them right next to Po at one point. Like, just say hi or something. Okay, it would have been so cool. Anyway, here's the big finale. Po fights the Chameleon. It's super epic and actually really cool. The Chameleon turns into all the previous villains because the Chameleon herself is very boring, and now no one wants to see her fight. It's actually a really cool fight. And then Jen jumps in to help Po, who saw that coming. Then they all fight together, and that's when the Chameleon pulls out the secret weapon and turns into who else but Po himself. That's right, we then get an awesome fight scene where Po fights a version of himself, which on a metaphorical level represents everything he used to be and hates about himself or something, probably. It's super epic, but Po is actually about to lose the fight, which is when Po has no choice but to give Shen the staff, like he did earlier in the movie. It's a cool callback. Po says that he believes in her, so Shen finally has the confidence to stand up to the Chameleon. Shen spins the staff around and does her own little version of gibberish that will be used for like the next 5 movies.
Serve and
The word-
skablam!
That's the wrong word. It's the new word. Let's go, skablam. But don't worry, despite this entire movie supposedly being about change, Po still gets to say the same line he's always said in every other movie so far. There it is. There it is. He straight up just kills the Chameleon and frees all the villains, returning their powers. But again, they all kind of respect him in some weird way, so they don't attack or anything. It's pretty cool. I wish any other villain other than Tai Lung would have spoke here, but you know, whatever. Po sends everyone back to the spirit realm. We get one final farewell. It's kind of sad. I teared up a bit. And then back at the village, you'll never see this coming. Po chooses Shen as his successor and as the person to become the next dragon warrior. This is cinema. It's so good. Shifu was kind of mad about this because, I don't know, he's just cranky this entire movie for some reason. Po also finally says his own made-up deep quote, finally proving that he has ascended from warrior to guardian. How cool.
Sometimes the greatest dishes come from the most unlikely ingredients.
And then Shifu is meditating and the movie ends with some montage of Po training Shen a little bit or something. It's cool. And that was the end of Kung Fu Panda 4. Was it the worst in the franchise? Honestly, probably. But was it actually even that bad? The first 3 movies are honestly so good that I'd say this movie is still great. I get it. Compared to the other 3, it lacks depth and it feels super rushed. Like this could have probably been some extra animation thing on a DVD release or something, to be honest. And the movie itself is like pretty short, but it's still really good. Okay, are they making a 5th one? That'd be cool. I don't know. Are they? Let me know. Anyway, all that to say, I actually did really enjoy it. I know that's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people online have said very negative things about this movie, and a lot of other people online have agreed with those things. This in turn has kind of tarnished the almost flawless legacy of Kung Fu Panda, but honestly, I don't really care. I liked it. It was a cool movie. I know I like to overanalyze stuff, but I also like to enjoy stuff, believe it or not. This entire Kung Fu Panda journey has been something I went on at the beginning of this year. I had never watched any of these movies before then, and I can confidently say these are some of the most fun I've had watching movies like in a very long time. I like them a lot. Good job, movie devs. And yeah, that's the video. If you want to support the channel so I can upload more videos like this, consider becoming a member. It starts at only $1 and gets your name on the screen here at the end of all my videos. There's also some exclusive member-only content coming out soon, maybe. So if you want to hear me rant about some random movies, you can watch that eventually, probably. Thank you to all my members. I appreciate you guys so much. Paula Abdul scores this one a solid 4 epic movies out of 4. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Find this, the Chameleon. Unfortunately, no.